persuaded? Not persuaded at all. Look, at the end of the day, this process has failed time and time again for decades to control deficit spending. It's done so because Democrats and Republicans alike have refused to engage in actual compromise and instead decide to fund everything, or as much of everything as they possibly can, without economizing. Nobody in the world gets to do this. A family can't do this, and a business can't do this, and if they did, they'd be in trouble. So instead, they just agreed to fund each other's priorities. And this has resulted in the accumulation of a $32 trillion debt.
Yep.
As a result of this deal that they passed this week over my strong objection, they're going to perpetuate that problem. They're going to add probably about $4 trillion to the debt over the next year and a half. Could be more than that. And the bill fails to accomplish literally any of the major objectives that they claim that it accomplishes. Notwithstanding that, a lot of Republicans voted for it, but significantly, more Democrats voted for it in the House than Republicans, and more Democrats voted for it in the Senate than Republicans. That tells you about something. Well, it tells you, it confirms what the New York Times reported yesterday, that Shalanda Young, the OMB director in the Biden administration, said we're going to win with the fine print. She played Republicans here, and they're still claiming victory. This is not a victory. This is capitulation.
What about what the speaker just said, that the work starts now, that he's going to be able to rein things in later? You heard what he said about the IRS. Now, one thing that was very important to you was regulatory reform. You came on this program the week before the bill passed the House, and you were very optimistic. You changed entirely by the time the bill got to the Senate. What happened?
Hey, Monty, you there?
Yep.
What's up?
Hey, look, tell my partner what you was telling me just now.
Okay, the Marina's CCTV feed shows the promoter guy has a green Toro speedboat. If you can find it, the GPS system should tell us where it's been.
And look, if the phone ain't there, you can bet there's going to be something to lead us to the party where he's going to do the leak at.
The force of law and have a big impact on the economy. Wouldn't be self-executed. Congress would have to enact them. It would make a major difference for our economy and our debt and deficit ultimately. By the time we got to last week, the House had introduced an entirely new bill, one written in secret by Kevin McCarthy and Joe Biden, but one that nobody else had seen before, and less than 72 hours after the world first saw it, the House passed it, and then the Senate passed it a day later. This didn't have the RAINS Act in it. It instead had a regulatory pay-as-you-go measure, known as regulatory pay-go, and that it was found in Section 263 of the bill. Section 265 of the bill said you don't really need to follow that.
You don't really have to follow that. You go straight, we're being played by these assholes.
Don't worry about showing that the regulations you're imposing impose no new net impact on the economy before you take something else out. Because the OMB director has the authority to simply wipe it away, pretend it doesn't exist, to waive it on her own accord. By the end of the day on Tuesday, I discovered this provision in 265, Tuesday morning. By the end of that day, the OMB director, Shalanda Young, had said she would use that to defend the president's regulatory priorities. The regulatory pay-as-you-go measure means nothing because it's waivable at the discretion of the Biden administration.
Wow. What about this 1% sequestration situation if the work doesn't get done on time? Does defense take a much more substantial cut than everything else if that 1% goes in place? What about that? Everything you're saying, by the way, Senator, is making me feel like you just keep going up against this tsunami of the Democrats and losing. What are you going to do?
Well, we should have stuck, and we should stick in the future to the plan that was put forward with Limit Safe Growth, where we aggressively ask for reforms, and we stand on the fact that they can't raise the debt ceiling without the Republican House's assent. That's part of the problem with this. And so, as for the numbers, according to the CBO, domestic discretionary spending would go up by about $36.5 billion, and defense discretionary spending would go down about $32.5 billion if these 1% 1% provisions kick in. There were some Republicans for whom that made a big difference, and that's why they voted against it. For me, basically the whole bill was the argument against it. Coupled with the fact that American families, moms and dads, businesses, people everywhere are struggling under the inflationary effects of this massive deficit spending. We have to bring it under control.
Real quick, Senator, before you go, we want to look ahead. What are you going to do about this climate agenda that this administration has a whole of government approach continuing to push through? I know you think this is a mistake.
It's a huge mistake. As I said as a member of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee just a few days ago, we have to remember that the American people do use carbon-based fuels. Fossil fuels have an impact in our lives, and we have to consider not only what people don't like about them, but also how we benefit from them. If we lose that, we'll find ourselves in this morass in which we will have no ability to live our lives as we would prefer. We will have no ability for poor and middle-class Americans to get ahead. This will be a factor and physical tax on everything we buy, affecting poor and middle-class Americans disproportionately.
Okay. Senator, good to have you this morning. Thanks very much. Utah Senator Mike Lee, thank you. Be sure to check out Senator. Whistleblowers and informants are living in fear for exposing the Biden family's business deals. 2 weeks ago, Comer told us one of those whistleblowers was missing. Now the New York Post Miranda Devine is caught up with that key witness who is on the run from the law on charges he denies. Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, member of the House Oversight Committee, on where things head now. Stay with us.
9 of the 10 people that we've identified that have very good knowledge with respect to Biden, they're one of 3 things, Maria. They're either currently in court, they're currently in jail, or they're currently missing. Honestly, Maria, they fear for their lives. Not only are the Biden lawyers and the Biden White House intimidating them, the media is trying to intimidate and discredit them.
And that was House Oversight Committee Chairman, Congressman James Comer, with me on this program last month on the tremendous pressure that whistleblowers and informants are facing for speaking out against President Biden and his family and their influence peddling scheme. The New York Post Miranda Devine is now reporting one of those key witnesses, former Israeli Defense Force Colonel Gal Luft, is alive and living in an undisclosed location. Luft vanished last month while on bail, awaiting extradition to the United States to face charges relating to arms export controls and the Foreign Agents Registration Act, allegations that he vehemently denies. He tweeted this: "I've been arrested in Cyprus on a politically motivated extradition request by the U.S. The U.S. claiming I'm an arms dealer. It would be funny if it weren't tragic. I've never been an arms dealer. DOJ is trying to bury me to protect Joe, Jim, and Hunter Biden. Shall I name names?" He writes. Meanwhile, tomorrow, FBI Director Christopher Wray is expected to deliver to the House Oversight Committee a subpoenaed document alleging then Vice President Joe Biden was involved in a $5 million bribery scheme with foreign nationals in exchange for U.S. foreign policy decisions. Wray facing Comer's threat of contempt of Congress charges until the release of that document. Join me right now with more on the extent of the Biden family's business deals is Florida Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, a member of both the House Oversight Committee and the House Freedom Caucus. Congresswoman, good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. What are you expecting from Christopher Wray tomorrow with that document, and how are you going to prove these influence peddling? Narratives of Biden and his family.
Well, we're expecting him to deliver. As you heard in the previous segment, the speaker even said that if this FBI director doesn't do his job and doesn't answer to Congress, he's going to be held in contempt. You know, over the last couple of months, House Oversight, as well as the staff that helps us run the investigations, has proven that we've actually been able to provide evidence. You know, before there was speculation on on the Ponzi scheme for influence peddling and also the personal enrichment of the Biden family. And now what we're finding is that these are no longer allegations, and we're creating a hard case. In my opinion, Maria, what we're seeing right now, if this is true, which I do believe that it is true in regards to Joe Biden receiving briberies and Hunter Biden, I do believe that this is grounds for impeachment. And so it's important that we continue to move forward to bring this to the American people, but also, too, that we, I think, do a house cleaning within our DOJ, because as you had stated earlier, they are protecting this family. The FBI is protecting the Hunter Biden family, and it's not okay.
How long has this been going on, and what about this intimidation that we're hearing about on these whistleblowers?
This corruption scheme has been going back to the time that Joe Biden was vice president. And the intimidation scheme that we're seeing, I mean, it's not unheard of. We saw this happen with former Trump officials as well. Obviously, President Trump's family has been subject to this. But what's really alarming about this is, as we know, the FBI, one, has a mole in there that's advising Hunter Biden as to the investigations by the name of One Eye, which, in saying it, it sounds like it's something out of a James Bond movie, but unfortunately it's true. And then also, too, I mean, my goodness, Maria, with the amount of evidence that's coming forward, it's scary to think that this guy that's currently sitting in the White House has become this corrupt, and it's really only doing one thing, and that's aiding and abetting the Communist Chinese Party.
Yeah, man, that's why it don't make no sense.
It puts all of us, I think, big
At
countries
risk.
on our backs, but we're doing right by the American people. This is nonpartisan. It should remain nonpartisan, but ultimately we have to make sure that the DOJ and the FBI is being held accountable as well. And when they are trumping up charges, especially against whistleblowers who are bringing evidence forward to show that this family, that this administration, that this president is compromised, if we don't do our job, we are ultimately going to be responsible for there no longer being justice in this country.
Well, I don't understand why your colleagues on the left
You will never understand.
the Communist
You don't
Party
realize.
in China. I mean, this morning we're looking at a story where a Chinese ship came just 100 yards or 150 yards away from a U.S. destroyer in the Taiwan Straits. We all know the CCP's goal is to overtake the United States as the #1 superpower. And you say you have evidence that Joe Biden is compromised and has been taking money from the CCP, and you're telling me that your colleagues on the left are supporting this? What?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think some of them are suffering from cognitive dissonance, but also, too, Maria, a lot of my colleagues, they seem to be, I don't want to say brainwashed, but they seem to be so far fixated on this green movement. What they don't realize is the green movement and the idea behind it is doing nothing but enabling China. Look, I'm the first person to say I care about the environment. I consider myself a conservationist. However, what they're not realizing is the CCP is exactly doing what, we should be doing. They're expanding their global footprint. They are basically going to other countries, harboring those foreign relations so that they can obviously focus on exports for natural resources. Meanwhile, they're pushing propaganda here in our country in order to economically hinder us and tell us that we need to ultimately get rid of fossil fuels altogether. And so when these people see us bring up what's happening with the Communist Chinese Party, with the Hunter Biden administration, and honestly the connection that this administration has to these green movements that are tied to the CCP, they think that it's a conspiracy theory, and it's not, and that's why bringing forward this evidence is so important.
Yeah, I've been putting a spotlight on the Communist Party of China now for a few years, but the mainstream media does not report on any of this. How much of a problem has it been for you to not get the story out? I remember during the Russia collusion story, the media was just rolling with this collusion story that Adam Schiff kept saying. Finally, this past week, somebody else away from Fox asked the question about potentially a compromised position that the president is in. John Kirby was speechless. Watch this.
What do you say to the majority of Americans who believe
to these claims is an absolute farce. We have literal
Oh, y'all keep saying farce is a fucking lie. Y'all using all these fucking funny words so y'all don't want you to count.
President is compromised. To go back to what you were saying about how complicit and how hard it's been to get this message out there, you know, I will credit this show and Fox for really doing right by the American people to provide a different perspective and show the truth on what's really happening in Washington. But, you know, social media was really a problem. And up until recently with Twitter, we really were fighting with one hand behind our back. And I will speak to Adam Schiff. Maria, I have a privilege resolution that I'm bringing to the floor, and we are going to fine that man $16 million for using his position to lie to the American people and ultimately push something that not only destroyed our country, ripped us apart, but also, too, is responsible for almost, I believe, maybe even potentially permanently damaging foreign relations. He's a criminal. What he did was wrong, and Adam Schiff, you will be held accountable.
Wow, well, look, we watched it and lived it all while he was going out there as the chairman of the Intelligence Committee telling us that there was collusion in plain sight. He had to know better. He was the chairman of the committee.
Absolutely. He said that he saw the, and I quote, smoking gun, and yet he was privileged to information that not even I or many of my colleagues would be able to see. He used that position. He absolutely aided and abetted a corrupt FBI into investigating a sitting president. I would even say, Maria, you know, some people would say that in doing what he did, not only did he bring dishonor to the House of Representatives, but he really destroyed, I think, the sense of camaraderie that we had in this country in pushing an egregious lie that cost the American taxpayers over $32 million.
It did rip the country apart. That's true. Congresswoman,
Don't you agree we need voter ID and clean election rolls? Well, your position walks in federal court right now fighting to make sure your...
good to see you. We'll be watching your work. Please come back soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna this morning. Quick break, and then the race for the White House is on. Republicans are seeking to unseat President Biden next November. The latest poll from Fox News has former President Trump leading the field by a wide margin for the GOP nomination. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich and Trafalgar Group, and senior strategist Robert Cahaley is here with analysis next.
Okay, we got Dre here, and we got the Diamond Casino.
Oh, so that's where he gonna do the big reveal at, huh?
Yeah, most likely. I'll have a look. Hey, don't you have a penthouse there?
Wait, man, you got a penthouse and a super yacht? Man, who the fuck did you rob?
According to my research, everybody.
Ha! Now that's why you my motherfucking partner. Okay, but look, get your ass up out of here. We got more motherfuckers to rob real soon.
Oh, shit. You gotta win by with this kid.